Hey, hey, Mystic Magic fans, it's Reverend Celeste Frazier with Mystic Magic, exploring our spirits to understand our lives. Today's show is going to be warm and fuzzy and raucous all together because my friend Maureen Muldoon, spiritual leader, actor, writer, counselor, teacher, all-around good person, is my guest today. And the topic is SpeakEasy of Vixens, racism, and miracles. So we're covering a broad amount of topics, and it's going to be rich. Stay tuned. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives. Hey, hey, Mystic Magic fans, it's Reverend Celeste with Mystic Magic, and today's show is going to be such fun. My guest today is Maureen Muldoon, and our topics are about SpeakEasy, about Vixens, miracles, and voices, or something like that. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Maureen Muldoon. Maureen is a celebrity life coach for individuals and organizations, and she supported nationally recognized musicians, actors, and athletes to achieve their personal and professional goals. Now, her expertise rests on 20 years of building a successful career as an award-winning actress, author, an artist, coupled with her lifelong work as a licensed spiritual practitioner. Her clear intuition and articulation enable her to deliver impeccable truth and insightful direction. As a speaker, Maureen's presentations are powerful, entertaining, and engaging. She creates memorable talks and workshops packed with information, inspiration, and actionable steps. Now, her unapologetic humor and spot-on storytelling make her an audience favorite. She has delivered keynote talks to audiences as large as 7,000. Her work has been featured on HBO, Fox TV, CBS, Parade, Pop Sugar, The Good Men Project, Risk, Actors Access. She writes press, among others. She is the founder and creative director of VoiceBox Stories, a storytelling show with a musical twist that she produces along with Kathy Richardson of Jefferson Starship. And she is the founder and spiritual director of SpeakEasy, a Sunday morning experience that gets people talking. She's the founder of Miracles Live 365, a virtual community and a daily coaching call that supports its members in living more peaceful, productive, and purposeful lives. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Reverend Celeste. When you were reading my bio, I was thinking that's also true about you. You know, like I feel like
Some of it.
Lots of fun, you know, I mean, we both come from producing and acting and moved into spirituality, and it's an interesting sweet spot that we have.
Yeah. We have various intersectionalities.
Mm-hmm.
You are an award-winning writer, and I'm sure in large part because of the way you open your heart to your audiences around your mother's death when you were a child, your former husband's infidelity, your child's transgender process. How do you find the courage to express the most vulnerable parts about you?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't really see it as courageous, actually. I see it as my therapy. I know I shouldn't see it as my therapy. I know that I should have a bigger, bolder answer than that. But when I get a thorn in my paw, I got to work it out. And I work it out through art. And I think this came to me when I was a youngster and my mom died. And this was in the 80s. And we didn't do therapy. Even if there was therapy, we weren't a family that did therapy. We did move on and get over it. And so but I was a person who felt everything and I needed to express. And I remember actually I had this memory just a little while ago. I was at my mom's death. We were all in the living room, and I remember I was so stoic up into a point, like I was in denial and denial. And then when she died, I broke open and I just felt like I moaned and cried for the entire family. I felt like a banshee. I felt like that took over me. And I think from that moment on, I recognized that I had shit to express and I couldn't have it bottled up inside of me. And and I found myself in the theater, and I found in the beginning stages of my theater that I could express all of this stuff in me without owning it. You know, it could be a character's emotions,
Sure.
and that was very helpful. And then that was almost the precursor to me actually owning my stories. And then I got to see through working in Los Angeles, working on Booby Trap, helping other people find their stories and tell their truth, how very healing it is. And then that was a game changer for me. I could hardly go back to reading other people's scripts and being a cog in someone else's story. Like I really felt like I just want to do, as you call, edutainment. That's, you know, entertaining, but also super helpful. And I think once you taste that, it's hard to go back to, you know, the no frills brand of entertainment.
Well, you do it well.
Thank
And, you know, as a theater person, I understand your need to put up productions. The type of productions you put up for Voice Box and the documentary shorts that you do are all centered around telling the stories of real people. This speaks to a compassionate heart again, one who is genuinely interested in people. What drives you to support people telling their stories?
You know, again, I grew up in a family of 8 kids, and my dad, you know, my house had no lock on it, and people came in from all over, from all places, and everyone was welcomed. And I want to say that everyone was welcome, but that's not really true. I mean, we've had this conversation. There was no black people in my neighborhood, and although we did have we did have this girl who came away with us for a summer vacation. Anita was her name. So yeah, I mean, I guess I can say in some levels everybody was welcome, and but that's what I learned from. I learned from like other people's stories. I learned from hearing other people's perspective. I learned from, you know, recognizing what things I thought were, well, really through that, and also through the 12 step, you know,
Mhm.
getting to hear people speak the unspeakable and having the response not be shame and blame, but like, good job, keep coming back. You know, I've been there too. So there is a demystification of storytelling and a kind of a letting go of the shame, like getting into like, I think you can handle my truth, and I'm going to be willing to try and handle your truth. And just the willingness will make it possible for us to leave without much scar tissue.
Did you learn that from the 12-step program you were in?
Yeah, I mean, I did. Like, I learned storytelling growing up, but then also in the 12-step program, we share our experience, our strength, and our hope. We don't share theory. Some people try and share theory, but you know, the thing that heals is this experience, strength, and hope. And from that, I saw that, you know, it wasn't all about me. You know, that I could be a compassionate listener, you know, and that, you know, I really do believe if we knew each other's stories, we'd be like 99.9 less likely to be killing each other if we
Yeah,
knew each other's stories.
we might be kinder to each other. Huh?
Yeah, yeah, and I might not ever get to walk around in your shoes, but at least I can listen to what it's like from your shoes. I
Mhm.
mean, that's a very generous thing. And never a time have I felt like listening to someone else's story has been a waste of time.
Sure.
You know, it's always mutual healing.
Yeah, and speaking of healing, I met you as a practitioner,
Hmm.
and you came to the Chicago area, and you're now the spiritual leader of a sturdy spiritual community. Like the rest of us, I'm sure you didn't plan to be a minister. What's your story of becoming a spiritual leader? Why did you say yes to it?
You know, I guess I early on I felt really excluded from the conversation. there was no priest that looked like me, and I didn't have the right body parts to get on the pulpit, so almost becoming an actor was like the default. But I really liked being an actor. It was somebody on stage telling a story that would cause a transformation in someone's life. Basically, that's what a minister does. And that's what I decided to be as an actor. But eventually we all have to come out from hiding, right? So I was kind of safe and hidden inside of what looked like a very unhidden and transparent role, but I was actually hiding in there. I was way too spiritual to be an actor. You know what I mean? It's like I would much rather be sitting around talking about God. So you and I actually kind of met, I think, also through the World Ministry of Prayer, when I just knew you by your voice, and then in working there too, I remember thinking, like, we're just transforming people's stories. Like, they basically think God has forgotten me and I'm all alone, and just call after call being able to say, that's not the story. Right. You don't want to focus on that story. So in regards to leadership in getting on the pulpit, man, I had a lot of resistance. In fact, I was doing the Prayer of Jabez when I realized I didn't want to be an actor anymore, or that it just wasn't feeling right in my skin. The Prayer of Jabez is, Lord, that you'll bless me indeed, expand my territory, that your hand will be with me, that you'll keep me from fear, that it will not cause pain. It's a powerful prayer. And when I did it, like within 2 weeks, my sister invited me to give this talk. And that's the one time that I spoke in front of 7,000 people. I had never spoken before. She said, you're going to do a motivational speech. I was like, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm an actress, but like through remembering that I had been praying for God's will, and through my resistance, I sort of moved myself through this experience. And it was a cool experience. Like, they paid me a lot of money. It was prestigious, but I was like, in my mind, 100% thinking I'm the emperor's new clothes. Like, they think I'm something I'm not, and I just kind of have to get through it because I want the money, and I said that I would do what God wanted me to do, and apparently this is something that showed up. And after I was done, I said to my higher power and anybody who would listen, I'm never doing that. And I got a standing ovation. Like, I wasn't shitty at it, but it was like, I'm never doing that again. And so now I was stuck between something I knew I wasn't going to do anymore, which was acting, and something I wasn't willing to do, which was speaking. So I kind of stuck there in an idle position for a long time, until I slowly, God slowly creeped in with, like, taps on the shoulder and little, signs and symbols to help me move into saying yes to, opening a church, which was never on my vision board, was never something I thought I would do. It was just so outside of my thing. I had been working at the Bodhi Spiritual Center for many years, and what I thought, I was working there as the community builder and the youth and family lead. I thought that was what I was doing, but when I came to find out, was what I was doing was learning how to run a church. Mm-hmm. And so instead of going to ministerial school, which God might have never gotten me there, I was at least willing to, hang out in the basement with kids and work with, leaders and build somebody else's church. And so that I think helped me to see that it was possible. And then Reverend Mark gave me, I told you this before, a series of 3 talks. And I never thought that I would have anything to say really on stage on my own, or that I would be able to come up with enough material to speak every single Sunday. And then on the 3rd talk, I realized, oh, I'm not doing this. My job is to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. I still get in the way a lot, but I know optimally my job is to get out of the way. Just hope I remember that more often than I do. But yeah. So that's kind of the journey. It was like a cha-cha-cha in regards to 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. And it just took me longer than it had to, because I had a lot of resistance. Old agreements, old definitions about what a minister was and what it had to look like. And I think that's why our church doesn't really look like a traditional church.
Well, all a ministry is about surrender anyway, so I'm sure you know that at this point. And you are a teacher of A Course in Miracles. Mm-hmm. And you created Miracles Live 365 with 2 online classes each day of the week.
Yeah.
You have 8 or so other teachers to help unpack the lessons.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to create Miracles Live 365?
Well, it was actually stemmed from those 3 talks that I gave. I had been taking an online business course that said, if you wanted to make more money, add add more content. And so I had this opportunity to do these 3 talks, and I thought, normally I'm that person anyhow. I want to throw a parade on every party, hot air balloons and everything else. Like, I just don't know when to stop. I'm what you'd call extra. And so I thought, well, I have these 3 talks, and I'm gonna, and he wanted me to speak on A Course in Miracles, and I said I'm gonna bring in a filmmaker who's gonna show a film that he created around A Course in Miracles, and then I'm gonna take everyone in the community through 21 days of doing the lessons. And my real honest goal wasn't just to add more value to it, but also I really do love, as you do, A Course in Miracles. I really did want people to get it, and it is a pretty intense and thick, conceptual, theological, journey into mind training.
Mhm.
So I wanted to at least give people the opportunity to experience the workbook. And I thought 21 days would be a good enough sampler so that people could go on their way and do it themselves. But on the 20th day or around about that, people started saying, let's go the distance. And I was like, no way, Jose. Like, I'm not getting up this early in the morning. I still have problems getting up early in the morning. I was late for the call this morning. The good thing about A Course in Miracles is that it tells us a healed mind doesn't plan. So if you are to teach A Course in Miracles, it is best that you don't plan anyhow. Like, it's best to come from a fresh, open mind and let the Holy Spirit do the teaching.
Yes.
But still, the ego gets in there. So that's how Miracles Live 365 came to be. I can't really take any credit for it, but I still get on it every day because it is my spiritual medicine. And,
Sure.
that's how it came to be. And I love that we support other teachers because there are so many great other teachers, and, it's by sharing that we get to keep it ourselves. So,
That's why I keep teaching it, because it's part of my practice, and especially when I know I've got some heavy duty forgiveness work to do.
yeah, absolutely.
And you really dedicated to, and you support your students one-on-one, and people know that you hear them, and that's important.
Yeah, well, I'm actually not here to fix or change anybody, but if somebody comes to me with a problem, it's my problem. I
Mhm.
somehow have projected it onto this other soul who's working it out, but they came to me, so I got to work it out too. And I just had that experience today when, if we're willing to look beneath it, there is a real lesson for each of us in every situation. Like, there's really no hierarchy here. Um, and that's the good news and the bad news, because I really do want to be a little bit smarter than at least someone in the world.
You are.
But the truth is, more than that, I want to erode my ego. Like, more than that, I really do want love over fear. And there, in this situation, I was talking to this other woman who was struggling with not liking someone, was that I got to look at my own self, and I got to look at, like, there's still people who I'm not really always kind to. Like, I need to work on that. And once I get to look at that through working with you or anybody else, then I get to actually do the work and be loving in that place that I want to shut down, which there's great benefits to doing the work, because then I have a little bit of a breath of freedom and expansion. So
Earth, yeah, Earth is a good school for learning how to be loving, isn't it?
yeah, and also, like, I'm giving this advice out to this woman, and you might probably find this with yourself, and I'm like, I wish I would take my own advice, man. So it's like there's only a certain amount of time that you can go around, like, speaking the word without actually having to apply it in your own life. So
Yeah, we get to hear ourselves talk, and so specifically, since you have recordings, you can listen and hear what you're saying to yourself, right? There's
yeah,
only one of us here, right?
yes, that's right.
Now,
Yeah.
as you mentioned before, SpeakEasy is not your typical Sunday service.
Mhm.
The audience participation in dialogue around the message is ingenious because the congregants are usually left to process their feelings about the message by themselves. What gave you the idea to create a format that allows people to share with each other, their friends and seeming strangers alike?
Yeah. Again, I got to give credit to the 12 step. we sat around in a circle, knee to knee and eye to eye. There were no, leaders. There was just like volunteer positions, and the consciousness lived between us, not just from one guy, And I was kind of sick of the paradigm of the triangle where there's one dude on top and you get what you get and you don't get upset. And there's sort of the trickle down thing of you get to make a point and all of us get to sort of be pointed at. Like that wasn't going to last too long. And so I liked moving into the circle. It feels a lot more feminine for me too. And I'm a kid. I'm the sixth daughter of six girls in my family with two younger brothers, and like I wanted to talk. I wanted to have a turn to talk at the dinner table. And sometimes that didn't always happen with a lot of loud people around and people who have a lot to say. So this was my way of at least inviting people to know that they have the opportunity to talk as well and that their word was as good as any others. And yeah.
So, since you keep bringing 12-step in, I'm going to ask a personal question about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a while since you started on your journey of being sober.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still really a challenge or a threat to you?
No, but I have learned so much through that classroom that, I learned a lot from getting my ass kicked on the streets of New Jersey. I mean, there's some things in classrooms you're not going to shake, right? So I even though I don't really identify all that much with that alcoholic who walked into the first meeting, I still can never amputate myself from the roots of that wisdom. And so I'll always be from New Jersey. I'll always be, from 12-step. I'll always be from the Catholic Church. I'll always love the smell of incense. Some of these things will just always be a truth for me. And there's no need to amputate it, and there's no need to stigmatize it either. Like some people say, I am, sorry, a truck's going by.
Okay, so we can wait a minute. So you were saying that you can't amputate yourself from...
You can't amputate yourself. Or like some people say, I survived Catholic school, or I survived the Catholic Church. And in SpeakEasy, we try and really honor all paths, and that's not very honoring. Even though it's funny, it's a joke, whatever. But like, there are still people who are diehard Catholics who get a lot out of that philosophy and theology. And I think we all end up in different classrooms at different times, and none of them are better or worse. It's just what we kind of take from them. So, so the 12-step, I've seen it work miracles in people's lives. There's a lot of people, the funny thing is, just like the Course in Miracles, there's a lot of people in 12-step who never actually do 12 steps. Sometimes they don't even do one step. And so they remain in that place of being stuck. There's a lot of people with the Course in Miracles book who have the book. Some of them read it. Some of them read the lessons. But very few of them actually work and apply the lessons. So taking the theory and actually taking what's given you and actually using it is going to make all the difference. So some people might have gone into 12-step and not have had the most optimal experience, but there's a lot of people who don't actually use the 12 steps, even though they're in the program. And isn't that?
Yeah. So going back to SpeakEasy, you got a program called the Culture Club. Mm-hmm. And currently you're studying white fragility and having discussions around that and related issues. You made a statement about being a racist ready to be healed on your website. You said, like you, my heart is filled with sadness and remorse and anger that we are still here. I pray for leaders who know how to bring solutions and not more separation. And I pray that people begin to wake up to love. I mean that in the most sincere corners of my heart. Well, you are a leader. What solutions do you want to offer, and what can you do to eliminate this separation?
Yeah. Are you hearing that background noise?
Yeah, we can hold a minute.
Yeah, I'll just move inside.
Yeah, he seems to want to hang around.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought he was just passing by.
Yeah, so did I. So the question is, what can I do as a leader? Well,
Well, what solutions do you want to offer to eliminate this separation thinking,
yeah,
particularly around race?
yeah. For me, it's always going to be about storytelling. It's always going to be about creating a space to hear the whole story. And we have not heard the whole story. Even reading White Fragility or watching the movie 13th, like there's just a whole bunch of history that's been excluded. And so I think for me, that's the first step, is to begin to hear and to listen compassionately to what the actual story is and be willing to be wrong about everything you ever thought you knew in regards to a certain topic. And
But how do you do that? I mean, how are you processing that? Because there's a lot of information that's been coming in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, are you just saying, wow, I didn't know that? Or are you allowing yourself to kind of integrate that information with what your experiences have been?
yeah, there's several steps to it. I think the first step is, wow, I didn't know that. And then the second step is, if you stay with, wow, I didn't know that, then you're just going to keep having, wow, I didn't know that moment.
Right.
So when you know better, you do better, you know?
What does
Um,
that look like, doing better?
what's that?
What does doing better look like for you?
I think it's about bringing everything to the light. Like when I talked to you a couple weeks ago or a week ago, I said there's still a racist in me because I find myself feeling differently when I see a black man before me walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I think that's where I am. And so to know that that's the thing that I want to heal. Just like when I was talking about earlier, when my friend came to me and said, there's somebody I don't like, and I had to look at, there's somebody I don't like either. Like to be willing to heal that. So the question is, how do I heal that?
Well, I saw you do an interesting dance with your son the other day,
Uh-huh.
because we were sitting there and talking about, I was saying somebody was a racist or whatever, and I don't know what he perceived. And he said, Mom, are you a racist? And you said, no, like knee jerk. And then you looked at me and you said, I guess I am a racist. And so, there's that dance that, okay, I don't want my son to think this. And I am
Yeah,
actually,
you
because
know,
I didn't know any better or for whatever reason.
yeah, I
Um,
think what it is too is that there's many definitions, that this word racist can mean one thing in one story and another thing in another story. So we say, like, if you were to say like a racist is somebody who hangs men by the trees and who wears, white, robes, or who actively hates people, then I would say, no, that's not me. But if the racist is the spectrum of racism, am I on the spectrum of racism? Absolutely. Is there a way that I feel differently towards one person than another? Yeah, and it's interesting to look at, and I'm not afraid to look at it any more than I'm afraid to tell people that I'm an alcoholic. These are just classrooms that I go through. But I remember when my husband left me for Miss Universe, and she was Asian. And I remember after that, every time I saw an Asian person, I felt like this gut wrenching kind of hatred. And I knew it was connected to this experience. And I thought, oh my God, I have that in me. That's a whole nother degree of racism. So there's a lot of spectrum in regards to the experience of racism. And
well,
for that, I definitely had to heal it. And I had to work at healing it. I had to sit closer to the Asian experience. I had to forgive myself for having those thoughts in my mind. I had to forgive her. I had to do a lot of forgiveness work.
and you also are in the privileged position of being a white female who wields a certain amount of power in society that women of other races do not have. So you're in that position of perhaps not even being aware of, you know, what you don't have to think about, right?
Yes, yes. I remember I had this experience recently where I have this friend of mine who's Black, and she was telling me that she was angry about well, current events. It was just a whole plethora of experiences that she was angry about. And she wanted to cut ties with a mutual friend of ours. And I was saying to her, don't cut ties. You are a bridge builder. You're not a bridge burner. You want to make sure that you build bridges. And then I went away from that experience thinking that was appropriate. And then I was reading White Fragility, and I was listening to interviews with Black leaders and women specifically. And they were talking about how often their anger is cleaned up. And I was like, oh, like that was me. That's what I just did to my friend. And I never saw that interpretation of what I was doing before. I thought it was helpful. And then I also...
Yeah, we're not given permission to be angry.
Yes. And when I went to her to apologize and make an amends, she was a bit shocked. She said, I didn't see it that way. And I bet I'll get more apologies like this in the future. I'm glad that you came to me and said this. And I felt almost a bit emotional. And I also felt like white tears. Like there were things that I didn't know before. And I was like, I have to just have this adult conversation and make sure I don't trigger or harm this person any more than they've been harmed. And it was really a conscious step through this experience. And it was good, but it's awkward. It's awkward to begin to have these conversations that you've never had before. But awkward is okay. I'm very awkward in many places.
Can you say more about white tears?
Well, I think it was in White Fragility when I was talking about white women's tears and how damaging they have been over history and how provocative they are and how powerful they are.
It's real.
Yeah, to cause greater destruction. And so it's interesting. It's very interesting to peek beneath the conversations that you've never had before. And that's part of white privilege, of not recognizing that I'm not allowing you to have your experience or your emotions, but I'm more than willing to have all of mine. So, I mean, when you know better, you do better, but it does take some practice, it does take some practice.
Well, I appreciate you being willing, and that matters a lot. And you are so busy and so talented and so ingenuitive. You have a lot of ingenuity and enterprising. Mm. What upcoming projects would you like our international listeners to know about in the coming days or weeks or months even?
Well, Miracles Live 365 is always near and dear to my heart, especially since now that you're a teacher back there again. I just really feel I feel like it's the best way to study A Course in Miracles. We have some amazing teachers. We get to it. We apply it. We don't just talk about theory. We talk about it in the everyday experience. As part of my legacy, I would love that to have a long life and to really help a lot of people who are interested in not just studying A Course in Miracles, but applying it and embodying it.
So you've got a call at 6:45 a.m. Central Time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a little early for people on the West Coast, but there are recordings. And then there's an 8:20 a.m. Central Time call. And then you've got another couple of calls during the week as well, right? Wednesday
night, we have a study group text call. And then on Wednesday afternoon, we have a 12-step meets 12 Steps to Miracles is what it's called. And we work the 12 steps and the concepts from A Course in Miracles. And I'm sure there'll be more things that grow in this community because it's 365, but I think it could be 24/7, 365. Again, like I like to add.
Well, it definitely is just by working the course, but I want people to know that there's a subscription option available, that they can do it for the whole year, by month, and that you get all of this 7 days a week actually, and 2 classes per day if you want. We'll let them know how they can find out at miracleslive365.com. Is that right?
Yep. All the information is right there. Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention before we sign off?
Well, I would just encourage people to continue to tell their stories and listen to the stories they haven't been listening to. I think that's a great step into your own healing, is to find your voice around the things that you need to speak. And if you don't know how to do that, then get with Reverend Celeste or some other practitioner or someone who you trust, and begin to share your stories, because we need to hear each other's stories, and that's what makes up the faceted version of who we are, so that every part of the story can be heard and honored. And I'm passionate about that, and I would just like to encourage people to continue to use that as a form of healing. Yeah.
Speaking of stories, I know you have a writers group, but you also have Voice Box. I know that it's been a little dampened because of the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Can we look forward to more Voice Boxes in the near future?
Yes, we can. And I hope you come back on stage and tell another story. Reverend Celeste opened up for us last month and slayed it. It was a great story about mother-daughter's relationship. And that's a whole classroom right there. So, so it's an every month event, and we'll be continuing with it. So yeah.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes too. And thank you. I wanted to have you on Mystic Magic because number one, you're a mystic, and number two, you're magical. And it's not just because of your pedigree, but it's because of who you are and your dedication to be present with people and to love people authentically. And so I appreciate the Jersey girl and just bringing it and being totally honest and being totally open, so that we can see that spirituality isn't something kind of spooky, but it's something very real. And you help to make it real for a lot of people. And I appreciate that you do that for me and so many others. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Celeste. I always call you Reverend Celeste, but when you say things like that, I got to just call you Celeste. Mutual. Cool. It's mutual, my magical, mystical friend. Thank you.
Right. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives. I want to tell my story of how I learned of God's glory. Its pages are filled with tears from the joys that conquered fears, of ego and illusion, of separation and confusion. And as I live each day, I am grateful to say how proud I am of me, allowing me to see I have been perfect all along. I am the melody of the song, whose rhythm is God's heart. I'm here to do my part in singing to the beat while sitting at the feet of the Master's truth. Between each lie and sleuth, between each self-attacking thought and every insult caught by a mind who took the bait, by a foolish assumption of hate, when all the while God's look and smile is felt throughout each breath and each egoic death. For the point is always to be exactly as I was intended to be. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Celeste A. Frazier, and this is Mystic Magic. Please tune in with us every week. And next week, we will have the topic, 2 colors, 1 rainbow. And my guest will be Kat Kim. Please see our show notes for more information about today's show. If you're so inclined, feel free to leave a review. If this program has been a benefit to you, please consider supporting the show. You can also find Mystic Magic Podcast on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, Google, and many more great venues. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives.